Sure. Yeah. Everything's going well. With us having the ability to be on court with our teams in the summer, it's been very helpful for, I guess most everybody now, because college basketball has turned into such a transient sport, but most especially for us is we returned 6 of our top 9 from last year as it relates to minutes and production, but we also brought in 5 from the portal. So this has been great for us to kind of see how everybody works together, set the tone for how we operate on and off the court, and really, as for coaches, it gives us an opportunity to instill some basic, fundamentals, but also gives us an idea of what we need to do schematically to maximize the potential of this team moving forward.
100%, 100%. So, obviously you guys have 49 wins over the last 2 years, conference championship, NCAA tournament appearance. You're building something special here at your alma mater. So, compared to the first couple seasons that you were at the helm, here at UAB, how is this offseason feeling in terms of team chemistry, in terms of goals they're setting, and everything as a team? How are you guys feeling compared to the last 2 years?
Well, you got to remember, George, I get the job in March of 2020, and the world goes into a global pandemic. So year one, honestly, it feels like a dream or a nightmare, quite frankly, in that nothing was normal. We were able to go 22-7. We won 13 league games in Conference USA. We were the only team that actually got all 18 league games in, so we were fortunate in that regard. But it was just bizarre, every day, something. When you get a new job, you want to immediately instill your principles and put your fingerprint on, hey, this is how we're going to operate moving forward. And we really couldn't do any of that in year one just based off of the circumstances. You couldn't do, we're signing guys via Zoom. You don't really even know what you're dealing with. So we get through the year. We were able to create some momentum in a time that was very difficult to do. We then added a few solid pieces based on a returning core back. And as you said, we had a great run at the end of the season. We're able to cut down the nets and get back to the NCAA tournament, which is the UAB standard. It's a part of, I've said that from day one. The Bartow standard, meaning Gene Bartow, the founder of the founding father of our program I played for. The Bartow standard is doing what we did last year, playing meaningful basketball in the month of March, and we were able to accomplish that. So we've created more momentum. We've added more pieces to the puzzle. And we feel really good about where we are internally. We have high expectations, and that comes really from our players first. The best programs and the best teams that I have been a part of have always been player driven, and I think we've got a chance to be that team this year.
For sure. So, I want to talk about this year's transfer class, and the one guy I want to start with is Eric Gaines. I mean, the hype is there. As athletic as anyone in the country, I saw some reports about, quotes that you had about him jumping out of the gym and everything. But, what was the process like when you guys saw Eric in the portal and started recruiting him? Because that's a big name in college hoops.
Yeah, we were really fortunate. Eric Gaines, as you said, he had a solid run at LSU. His athleticism and his potential would have put him in a position where he could have, quite frankly, gone most anywhere he wanted in the country. We were fortunate to sell him on our vision and the fact that we feel like he can come here and take the next step in his basketball life. He's a tremendous athlete. Everything's really easy for him. He kind of glides. To allude to the quotes that I made that you just alluded to, I mean, he really could be a hell of a track and field guy because he just glides the way that he runs, really quick off his feet. He's got to get stronger. He's got to gain some weight, which we're working on and he's working on. And he's just got to tighten his game. He's because the game appears to be easy to him, sometimes he gets a little loose. And so we're working on tightening his game and then his perimeter shooting. He's a good foul shooter. Shows you that, from a technique standpoint, he's solid, but his three-point shooting has to improve in order for him to reach his potential. And those are things that we're working on this summer.
100%. So, 2 more guys from the class, the Brewer brothers that you guys bring in, Ty and Ladarius, coming into the program together. I'm sure they have plenty of chemistry, working with each other. Obviously having grown up playing together their entire lives, but How has the addition of those two, benefited your locker room, your entire team chemistry? That those two guys, are in tune, that they know they can play with each other. How does that benefit the team as a whole?
Well, first off, they're both tremendous players. LA is a guy who scored over 1,600 points in his collegiate career, two-time All-League guy in the SoCon. A guy that's kind of an old-school scorer, but just makes plays. He's really good in the mid-range. I told him, he's going to probably have more catch-and-shoot open threes this year just based off of Jelly and based off of Eric Gaines' ability to create opportunities off the bounce for their teammates. LA's been a guy that's always been a late clock guy. Whatever team he was with, he's had to make the shot at the end of the clock. And he'll still be in that position for us, but not nearly as heavily as in the past, simply because of the other personnel that we have. But he's a guy that, again, he's a sixth-year senior. He played 2 at Southeast Missouri, played 2 at ETSU, and then he had to sit out back in those days. So this is his 6th year in college. He's a guy that wanted to come, and he's only been a part of one winning team in his 4 years, no postseason. So he wants to come and experience something that we feel like he can be a huge addition in us accomplishing. And then Ty is a tremendous athlete, a guy that can play any of our front court positions. Great energy, tremendous worker. Both of them have really put their time in the gym this summer. And Ty is just a phenomenal athlete, second only to Eric on our team, and his ability to get to balls, block shots, play above the rim. Again, he's a guy that can pick and pop and shoot threes, but he's really good in that mid-range, much like LA.
So I want to talk about one guy that, has moved on from the program now, but you did bring in from the portal as a grad transfer, Michael Ertl. Mike was obviously one of your early additions, at UAB. And, I remember when he wrapped up his career, when you guys were at the podium, I remember you talking about how important he was to your program, with this rebirth of UAB basketball. So is it, when you have a guy like Mike, a transfer with only 1 year, with only 2 years of eligibility left when you get him, is it more difficult to get them fully bought into something as big as the rebirth of the program, a big picture goal of your teams?
Well, when you bring in a guy with only 1 year, and obviously Mike came in here, as a highly decorated player. He was a 3-time All-League guy at ULM in the Sun Belt Conference, and a guy that had tremendous success. And, he and Quan Jackson, I will always be indebted to those two guys because, again, this was during COVID, and they came here and bought into a vision sight unseen. They'd never stepped foot on campus. We had never met face-to-face based on the circumstances, and they both, signed up for helping us, turn this program back in the direction that we currently have it. They, the only positive, I suppose, out of COVID was that they got a COVID year, so they got an opportunity after their 1 year of eligibility to come back, and they took full advantage of it. Both of them were tremendous for us down the stretch. Jelly gets a lot of the hype, and justifiably so. He was the Conference Player of the Year. He was the most valuable player in the Conference USA tournament. But Quan and Mike, their play in the last 2 months of the season were equally as pivotal in us being able to get to 27 wins and capture a championship in Conference USA. And again, based on their faith and their work and the way in which they approach their final run in college basketball, I'll always be indebted to those two guys.
Those two guys, when they were up there with you after the last game of the season, they stopped answering their questions and they were free to leave the podium. But you did something really interesting that I took notice of is you asked them, you asked the people, the staff, if those two kids were allowed to take their name tags with them, their March Madness name tags with them. What went into that, and what were the emotions of, those two guys making the tournament with you like?
Well, I wanted them just to have something. And when those kids, every kid grows up and dreams of having the opportunity to play in March Madness. And I just wanted them to be able to always have that name tag because and to reflect back on the journey. It's never easy. There's a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs, but I'm a big believer in perseverance is valuable. And those guys persevered through a lot of ups and downs throughout their journey and ended up culminating in reaching their goal of cutting down nets and having an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. I wish I wish Houston. I wish we didn't draw the most underseeded 5 seed in college basketball. Houston should have been about a 3, but I knew we were going to have to play near perfect in order to beat the Cougars, and we weren't able to do that. But it doesn't diminish what those two guys accomplished.
Right. So along with them, obviously you mentioned Jelly, the big name in college hoops. The conference player of the year. He's really blown up as one of the most recognizable names in the country. So bringing all these new guys in, but also bringing back that solid core led by Jelly, how has he acted as a leader for your new guys and welcomed them into the program and persuaded them to buy into this culture as well?
Jelly, first and foremost, is a tremendous worker. He really works on his game. He's a guy that's a dynamic playmaker, as you said, and obviously with the name Jelly and the runs and the way in which he scores, and people are attracted to the little guy, so to speak, because they can relate, I suppose, a little bit more to a 5'11" guy as opposed to a 6'11" guy. But Jelly had a tremendous year, and again, dynamic playmaker, really looks forward to seizing the opportunity of the moment. He did that for us timeless times throughout the course of last season, and he's been great, just really leading by example. And he's got a taste last year. It's the first time he's been a part of a successful run in his collegiate career, and he wants more.